Yeah. Thank you. Before the camera comes back on.
It's on.
Oh, well, hey. I had gotten questions, you know, and I normally don't do this because I'd rather just speak to you as a person. Usually when I come up, people know who I am and what I've done. You know, I have multiple degrees. And archaeology is one of my things, and paleontology. I also have degrees in art, and I have masters and whatever else. And have I done field work and stuff? Yeah, I've been doing this since I've been 8 years old. Okay. So, yeah, it's not just somebody that, you know, listens to Barrage and says, oh, I'm into this stuff. I'm trained, I'm degreed, I am who I am. And it's very strange, or it was strange for me in the beginning, to come from this direction, and you guys are over in that direction. And what it is as far as my thinking now is that it all comes together. I don't have all the answers for you. I think the biggest answer will come when Lloyd Pye and the Star Child get his full DNA. And I think if they get the answer that I think they're going to get, it's going to rock the world. It's going to be something very, very, very different. Now I'm going to pull in some other stuff. So now we've already got a war in heaven. We've got the gods of Cholula. We've got the Star Child out there. There's other stuff going on continually. Palenque. Now this one you're probably very familiar with. I came at it from a different direction, an archaeological site. You're coming at it probably from Eric von Daniken and the Chariots of the Gods. And I had to familiarize myself with him. Are you familiar with him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know, oh yeah, this is secondhand view to me. It was like, I had to go back and read all this stuff and figure out where he's coming from. Okay, here's where it starts to get really fun, because most people aren't aware of this. I am, was there, did it, the whole bit. This is Palenque, and this is the pyramid of the inscriptions. This is where the quote-unquote astronaut is buried, okay? This, most people have never seen, is the astronaut's death mask, okay? This mask was made, and if you look at it, you're just going to see the person that was there. And you're going to find something unusual about his eyes. You're going to find something very unusual about this structure and extremely here. But you're also going to find out the shape. Do you remember I'm not in shape face? He's got it too. You've got to understand that Mayans are little, short, round, moon-faced people. Okay, this is nothing saying against them. I find them very beautiful. But they're little people. Very broad face. Little smooshed nose. Sometimes in different ones, there's Olmec, there's Zapotec, there's whatever. Sometimes you'll get what you can think of as a Roman nose. So, but you don't have the little aquiline, straight, tiny little nose. You've got a little bitty nose that would drown in a rainstorm, or you've got a beak. I mean, there's no getting around it. It's one or the other. And even if you put the two together, genetics are going to say you're going to get the bigger nose. Okay? So think of this little aquiline, very narrow little nose. When you come up later, look at this mask, and then we're going to look at this. Now this has only been out a couple times. This and this piece I very seldom bring anyway, because they're the only two that I know that are in existence. Period. And I will not tell you how this came about. This is the god. Okay? This was worn by the high priest of the gods and passed down. It is drilled through the top, and is drilled through the bottom, and it is worn. It is made out of what they call jade. We would know it as jadeite, hadeita. Hade, jade. Chinese jade, totally different stuff. Hadeita, jadeite. Reserved for the gods. Really special people. When you look at the little mask that's over here, you're going to find a form of what we would think of as turquoise. This is an extremely rare and a rare occurring stone. This is more precious to them than gold or platinum or latinum, if you're a Trekkie, latinum or whatever. This is like, you know, I could buy a city with this back then, with this amount of this stone. Only worked on by the finest craftsmen. John Schmidt didn't go out and find a chunk of this in the mountains to go home and whittle this at night and make something for himself. Wasn't allowed. If you weren't in the right caste and the right people and you were caught with this, you could be put to death. Simple. You have to really look at this little face. Good things come in small packages. The thing about jadeite or jadeite, like jade, is it's always cold. Touch it to your face. Stay cold. It will not take on body heat or warmth. This was also associated, the coolness of the touch of the skin, with the gods. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but there was a coolness about their touch. This is recorded. I don't know if you find this or not, or if this is in your lore or not, but it's there. So, and everybody seems to have a highly interesting reaction to the fact that it's green. And it's supposed to be a very good representation of the god. And when you look at it, and look at it close, and break it down into dimensions, you're going to find the size of the eyes, this little thing that should be a nose, but you're not sure what the, and check where the mouth is. They didn't use their mouth. Oh, the other thing is that the gods could speak to you without using their mouths, too. What I assume we would now consider telepathy. And that they had the ability to talk to people from other areas, other tribes, Olmec, Zapotec, Mixtec, wherever they were, anybody that came to Cholula, if they could come to them and speak to them, there was no problem with language. Interesting. Highly interesting. But the neat part is, if you compare this little head to that face, and it's going to do some strange things. The more you look, the more you see, the more questions that are going to be raised. Now we're going to pop to a couple little areas, because if we're talking about Mesoamerica, we're talking in Mexico, Chiapas, Guatemala, whatever else. Here comes some other, oh, this is, and this is original, this is their typical ceramic carving representation of people, okay? This is their little earplugs, this is what they looked at, coming from the same time period.
Like the John Q. Citizen.
Yeah, you know, here he is, John Doe, God. John Doe, God. And if you look at the shape, the head, unlike the Star Child or the guys of Cholula, isn't rounded, but it definitely goes. And with this stone, it's very hard to round it because it fractures the way it breaks. So whoever the artist was took forever to do this, but caught the essence of what he wanted. Now we do some weird stuff. Now we're going to go to Bonampoc and Lacandrones. Bonampoc, I'll pass this little thing this around again. Bonampoc is on a line between, pass that little around again. You've got Cholula, where the gods reside. You've got Mexico City and Teotihuacan, where the gods are supposed to have come down. All of them had the same thing about the eagle. The eagle has landed. The eagle came down, opened his beak, the guys came out and they were gods and taught them how to do stuff. We're going to get to a sneakier area, Palenque. Forget Bonaparte. Palenque. Period of the temple, the inscriptions, the guy with the green face. The oral legend and the written legend comes down two ways, but they translate the same. This guy comes down, and they say that he comes from, and the word is the same, Tulan Feliz. The god comes from Tulan Feliz. What's Tulan Feliz? Translates only two ways. One is from the stars, from the heavens, from the sky, Tulan Feliz. The other is from such a long distance away it's unimaginable. So you've got two translations, but close. One, he comes from God knows where, and it's so far away there's no way, unimaginable. And the other is he comes from the skies and the stars. Okay, so here comes the God. Down he comes, or however he gets there. Again, his craft is wiped out. Whatever he comes in is busted. He can't even fix it. He tries. He gets going with the people and says, you know, I need this, this, and this. And he has knowledge of metals and things that they don't. But whatever happens, he can't fix what he came in. He's stuck. He's stuck. So he, like the gods of Cholula, stays with the people in Palenque. And he, like the gods of Cholula, lived through 4 of their lifetimes. So you figure 80 years as an average. You know, and that would be a real riot to somebody. If you're only going to live 20, 22 years, you know, my great-grandfather knew him when he landed here. You know, that's sort of a spooky thing. If you get a very uneducated or a backward or a neo-culture, and somebody comes in and can do all these fabulous, wonderful things, and it lives through 40 of your lifetimes, you're going to consider him a god, whether he's a god or not. But again, he comes down. Is it from the sky, wherever his craft is busted, he stays with him. He does the same thing that the gods of Cholula do. He takes it a step farther. He has to build an observatory. Dead on to our observatories nowadays. If you've been to the Yucatan, you've seen the one at Chichen, the rounded one just like Palomar. He has him build one of those too. And he intermarries. Unlike the gods of Cholula, which are pure gods, they're not hybrids, quote, quote, like the Star Child. This guy comes down and says, hey, not so bad. And he marries. And he has offspring. And his offspring continue to be the rulers. And they're much more smart, they're more advanced, they're doing all kinds of stuff. He teaches them astronomy based on Venus. He teaches them math. He teaches them all kinds of stuff. And this place flourishes like crazy. Well, then he finally dies. And they bury him in what we call the Pyramid of the Inscriptions. A stinker to climb up. Oh, little teeny steps. You got to creep up. And if you're a little teeny person, I guess it'd be fairly easy to get up. I mean, you're at the top of that. When they discovered it, they went in, and at the top, and they're starting to get smart about this. At the top of the pyramid, if this is the inner part, they usually have like a little stoa, and now they got these little column dinkies that go out there. And usually they have like false doors, or little doors that go there but don't really go anywhere. These guys got really smart because they didn't want to mess with him. They wanted to keep him preserved. Well, guess where his actually opening was? Dead center of the floor, at the top of the pyramid. Archaeologists started foxing around with it and said, hey, wait. Thump, 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 thump. Sounds hollow. Get this big stone up, and by God, there's something down there. But it's filled with rubble. It takes them forever, years, to clean out all of this stuff. It's nuts here. Most doorways and littles back then were like this. You know, you built up stone over here, and you had a piece that came across the top, like a Stonehenge, you know. Yeah, exactly. And pretty basic. Was that here? No, they had corbelled arches. Think of the pyramid shape. The doorways, the entrances, and everything else were triangular. And they weren't built for little bitty short people. I watched a 6'4" guy go walking through them with head clearance like this. Why? And it wasn't just because that's how you built it was strong. It was done for a reason. They still haven't figured out why. But with this guy, it's an interesting little dude that happened. They find this little hole in the top, and they think, ha, ha, ha. They're going to find all kinds of gold and jewels and stuff down below. Okay. Here's your pyramid. They find an entranceway that comes down this way, down these little steps with this corbel-shaped strange thing, and they come to a landing. There's nothing around. But then they realize there's a whole bunch more garbage coming down this way. And they have to clear all of this out. Another landing. Well, the astronaut, as they call his chamber, is here. And a chunk of it's actually below the ground. Okay? Ground level, down below. But what's interesting about the pyramid of the astronaut Couple things. One, you've seen the sarcophagus that he lays in with all the carvings, looks like a little guy flying a spaceship. That's not as interesting as the paintings that are on the walls around him, behind him. You got 18th dynasty gods of Egypt. And a couple of them actually holding the Ankh. Do you know what the Ankh is? The symbol of life? They're holding the Ankh. The thing that I always look for, though, is the blue lotus. There, and if you really want to have some fun and you really want to dig and find out about gods and where these came from, there is a blue lotus flower. You know what the lotus is in Egypt? All right. You want to have some fun? Go start looking up Egyptian stuff. Look at Tut, look at whatever dynasty that you want. And watch whoever it is holding to the pharaoh's mouth or to one of the god's mouth the lotus. But it's always got to be a blue lotus. They're trying to, they had some seeds and stuff, and they're trying to do them in England right now, but they do know that there is a strange, almost like a peyote or a magic mushroom. This blue lotus can do unusual things. But anyhow, no blue lotus in him, but gods of ancient Egypt are intertwined on the walls, painted with the Mesoamerican gods.
South America?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make sense.
But there they are. All right, now it's like, okay, you know, the Bandanigan's guy's got Egyptian Ankhs in his tomb. What the heck is this? Now it gets stranger. The fellow that's buried in this tomb. Now again, Mayans are how tall? 5 feet. Okay, little broad people, little round faces. You know how tall he is? When they found him, they undid the sarcophagus and off to Mexico City he went. He's almost 6'4". Okay, so now he's a giant among men. If you've got little people, I'm 5'9.5". Okay, I'm standing flat-footed. 5-foot person, 6'4". He stands out in the crowd. Where did a 6'4" guy come from? Well, people say he's a Viking Norseman. You know that fits the thing. He comes in a boat, it crashes, it sinks, he swims ashore. You know, Norsemen can live 80, 100 years. You know, he would know about navigation. He would know about navigation with the stars. But Norsemen didn't have the information that he imparted. So who was this? What's this Tulan Belize? You know, Norsemen, Tulan Belize, big distance away. That would be a hell of a distance away when you think of it. I mean, a Norseman would have to come across, wriggle all the way down, come around Florida, sneak across, whoop over, and bang into somebody there, and hopefully he's there. Possible. I'm not saying it's beyond the realm of possibility. Possible. But what's this other Tulan Belize from the stars? I don't know. Except for he's buried with the symbols of the sky and the stars. And if you're used to Egyptian mythology and the paintings and the tombs there, they do a strange little star. It's like a little weird 5-pointed star with a circle in the center. And that's always a star pattern. It's got it. What does it mean? Don't know. We don't have enough going yet. Okay, so now we got Cholula, we got Chihuahua, we got Palenque. What else is going on? Now we got living people. Yeah.
Any chance to get DNA from that corpse?
It would be nice, but dealing with Mexico and Mexico's government it's a godfather system down there. They literally in place right now. It's sort of like the haves and the have-nots. You know, you're either really wealthy or you're a peon, and there doesn't seem to be much money in between. It is an extremely wealthy country. I mean, I've been in areas where, I mean, there's copper exposed in the size of mountains. There's silver. They have gas. Forget the gas shortage. We don't need Saudi's gas. They've got it. It's got a lot of sulfur in it, but you can refine that out like that. That country's richer than hell, but they keep the people down, unfortunately. Big time. There are groups of Indians still living, and I've got pictures of them here, who really have very little contact with the outside world as we know it, way high into the Sierra Madres. They're still living the life that they did back then. I scared the hell out of them with an SX-70 camera at 75. We're going up to San Cristobal de las Casas, and I'll tell you how to get up here and what's really neat. If you ever get a chance to go there, this is a place to go. This is not your normal, you know, I'm going to go watch the bullfights. This is a neat area. And we're going winding up, and out are these little, and there's a picture of them. In fact, holding the flowers. If I can find them. They look like, here they are. They look like they're carvings. us in 75 also. Fernando with them. They look like, if you want to see what the faces on the temples in Mesoamerica look like in life, look at this. Pass this around, but if you would, hold it this way because this is almost gone and I don't want to lose what's on there. Look at these pictures. These are like, you took the face off the pyramid and you brought it to life. What they were doing, if you can look close, they had bouquets of orchids this big, and they had fruit. And we're coming around this little narrow road, and here are these kids in their native costume and the whole bit, and I was like, whoa, stop the car, stop the car. And out I got, and so, unfortunately, they didn't speak Spanish, or even dialects of Spanish. They spoke a dialect of Mayan. And thank God Fernando, who was with us, spoke it. And so I'm dickering. I don't care if they die by tomorrow. I mean, it's a bouquet of orchids this big. It's to die. And I'm like, and they were more interested in the food than I wanted the orchids. And so we dickered back and forth, and so I bought some orchids, and I brought out the original SX70 camera, the little brown one you snapped up. You know, you punch the button, boom, get the thing out, and do it. Well, fortunately, they were standing on the side of the mountain, with the mountain behind them, not on the side where you fall off on the road. And so I asked Fernando, I said, listen, would you ask them, because I know the customs, and some of them don't like their pictures taken, like it's going to steal their soul or whatever. I said, would you ask them, would it be okay if I took their picture, and I would take a picture for them to take back? I thought that they were from one family. And he said, okay. So he told the kids, and they were a little bit spooky. But they all got together. You should see them standing there. The picture I didn't bring is when they throw themselves into the bushes. And thank God they were on the side of the mountain, you know, with the mountain behind them. And they all stood together looking a little, they still look a little spooky here if you look at them close. And Fernando's standing there with them, and I picked up the camera, and I didn't do it fast, click, click. I did click. Well, a buzz whizzed, and it spit it out, and these kids threw themselves into the bushes, screaming their brains out. And I'm hoping to God a car doesn't come up the mountain and squash me in the meantime. These kids are in the bushes, and they knocked the guide over, and he's down in there too. And they're not coming out. I mean, these kids are looking out, you know, this is a macho country, you know, men don't, you know, freaks like this. And they're looking up from the bushes like this, you know. So I finally found out that I said, Fernando, what the hell happened, you know? And the translation is they thought it was like Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. This was his tongue. Okay, now I can relate to him. So I'm going, oh. I said, no. And I don't have Mayan. You know, Spanish fine, but Mayan, I didn't have really. And I said, and that dialect, and I said, listen, explain to him, no problem. And of course, that first one came out of blur because there's like legs and things flying and whatever else. And that can you repeat sort of the macho-ly, you know, that this is a manly thing, and then I will do 2 of these real quick, and it will be like drawings for, you know, to take home to their family. And so this is one of the ones where they're like, now look at the faces. They're like, not sure about this one, but I'll stand here until it's done. And I whipped off 2 real quick and gave them 1. And this whole little group got around it, and as the photos started, you know how they slowly came out? They freaked again. It was like, now the oldest boy stood there. He was very macho holding it, but he was freaking out of it too. He was like, and then they were creeping up around his shoulder to watch this, and it was like, so I said, well, you know, the parents will love this. And Fernando said, no, you don't understand. He said, they're all from the same village, but not the same family. And I said, well, I don't have enough film left to take one for all of them. He said, oh, no, you don't understand. This will pass around from now until the village is there no longer and go like monthly from house to house to house. And this will be their special thing. And I'm going, there are still people and places there that are almost untouched by man. Well, now we get to a really neat place. I meet these kids, which is a neat thing to do. But, you know, they're thinking I'm Quetzal and God knows what's going on, and, you know, but I can't speak their language. Well, we take a plane and we fly into Bonampak. Now, if you want to go to Bonampak or Yaxchilan, at the time you had 2 ways to go. To Yaxchilan, you could take a packed mule and a canoe, and it took you about 2 weeks, filled with the boat is down there, line. Get cutter insect spray, you'll be fine. I got Montezuma's revenge, and I ended up in a bush plane hanging out 10,500 feet over the jungles of Chiapas, puking my guts out, hoping there was nobody down below. And I was not stopping. You know, we're going into Yaxchilan for this excavation. I'm going to be there by God. And I look like the new Twiggy. I'll tell you one thing, if you get Montezuma, I mean, forget any other diet that's out there, you will be a twig in no time. You can't eat anything. I'll get Manzanilla tea. It tastes like pineapple. You get up in the morning, you have a glass of Manzanilla tea, you run right to the bathroom, you off check everything that's in your system. Then you can have a little bit of like super broth, that'll hold down. At night, you go get your Manzanilla tea, barf everything else up again, try to hold something else and go. It's an ugly way to do, but you can do it. And also back then, if you could name the name of a drug and you were in a major city, you didn't need a prescription, they'd sell it to you. Our guy, at one point, I thought I'm gonna die. I'd rather die. I mean, you were not only throwing up, you were going both ways, sometimes both at the same time. You were like, nothing twiggy, it was miserable. And our guide got us a medicine that was illegal in the United States. And said, knock it out of you in 24 hours. I would have eaten a dead moose. I don't care what it was. Just give it to me. And we've been very careful. I mean, not taking anything that had it. And it was not pleasant.
It's the water
The water is deadly.
Oh, it's not only the water, but most people make a big mistake too. I mean, if you go, we'll have a salad in a restaurant, what do they think you wash the stuff in? If it's a fruit and you can't peel it, don't go near it. People go into a big 5-star hotel and think, ha ha ha, I'm not drinking your water, but what do? They wash their hands and they brush their teeth. You got it. Swimming pools. No. Dive in, get it up your nose, down your throat, you got the trots. It's not nice. And if Lomotil doesn't stop you and plug you up in 2 days, you've got amoebic dysentery. Get your family back to the United States and check into a hospital. It is not a pleasant prospect. Well, anyhow, it gets wild. Well, Bonaparte, at that time, like I said, these two places, you had two choices. You could fly in by bush plane at St. Cristobal de las Casas, which is your nicest way to go. Or you come up by pack mule and dugout, and I wasn't going to do dugout and pack mule because I go into form of anaphylactic shock if I'm stunned by certain things. I've got all my stuff with me, but I'm taking it. So we're flying in. As we're flying into Yaxchilan, which I'll get into it in a minute, we're flying in, and the head archaeologist is flying out, he's wiggling his wings at us. This is just after I puked. And we're coming in, and we look at the landing strip, and I'm going, this is fun. Any pilots in the group? Forget the helicopter pilots. It would take a helicopter to get into this thing. It was a landing strip like this, cut out in the middle of the jungle, and maybe as wide as this room. And I'm figuring, he flew out, he got in, no problem, we're coming in too. I missed seeing him, but I got to his other people. So we're flying into Yaxchilan, but we go into Bonaparte also. The murals in Bonaparte, and there's pictures here too, are the best colored chroma murals in Mesoamerica or anywhere. They're in full color, they're gorgeous. But the strange part is in Bonaparte, when I point them out to you here too, you're going to find the gods of Egypt there too, and the Amun. So that raises more questions. I'm thinking, okay, in my dynasty, so now I'm trying to pull together all my stuff. Having a great time. Now we're going to go see the Lacandones Indians. Now's where it gets really hairy. The Lacandones, Trudy Bloom and her husband, who was an archaeologist, found these Indians in about 1950. No one knew they existed. And the gas of it is, are you familiar with the Jivaru from South America that's headhunters?
Yeah.
They're Jivaru.
Oh,
They're not headhunters anymore, and they certainly weren't when they were there, but here, I'll give you an idea. This is a Lacandones. A Lacandone. If you're familiar with Jivaru, you'll know the face, and you'll know the hair, and you'll know everything when you see them right away. This is not a Toltec, Mayan, Olmec, whatever. In their language, they have another name for themselves, and it translates as the true people. The interesting thing, and you'll see pictures of them here, there are supposedly no other pictures taken of a Lacandone other than what Trudy Bloom, now Bloom, had, or her husband. Wrong. I got them. We flew in to see them. They had been discovered in about I saw them again in 1975, and they had only been discovered like 25 years before. They are like no other physical type in Mesoamerica. They're the closest to the Hibaro group, okay? They are a different body type. Their fingernails are extremely interesting. They are shaped, they have a squatter frame, a broader hand, they have fingernails shaped like that. Ours are, you know, usually this way, right? No, theirs are, yeah, yeah. Interesting, when you look at their nose, the chief, the head honcho of the Lacandon, always has blue eyes. Blue the color of your blouse. Everybody says, the Spanish got to them. They came in, they landed, they found them, went, broads, let's get them, boom, and they had all these kids. No, the legends don't say this. The Lacandon are a very private people. Their language is like nothing else. They got Spanish priests and missionaries to come in there to teach them Spanish, to try to get things going, but they're extremely, extremely private. Their legend, which has come down through all the centuries, they have like a shaman, a head medicine type, nanny type, whatever, and then the rule passes down through the father's side as well, unless, unfortunately, the son doesn't survive and there's a daughter and then she marries, but that bloodline has to continue. And they've always got to have the blue eyeballs. Just the one guy, the chief. Their legend, they call themselves, and in fact I had another little thing over here so you could look at it. And I wanted to pronounce it right. They call themselves Hakwi, which is spelled and pronounced like nothing else in Mesoamerica, which means the true people. Their legend says that wherever they came from originally, the gods took them, plucked them up, and carried them through the sky, and put them here. And he put them there, or they put them there, for safekeeping. So for whatever reason, so they wouldn't be destroyed for whatever. They were the true people, and they wanted to keep them that way. So from wherever they came from, and they sure as hell look like, you know, if you borrowed to me, but who knows? The gods came and got them, brought them here, put them there, and kept them there, and said, stay. And when things are safe, we will come and get you and take you back.
Now, the Hibaro normally are, if memory serves, a South American tribe in the Venezuela, Brazil, Peru border area.
Off of the Amazon, yeah.
Now,
And rainforest.
Yeah. Now, the new archaeological digs that they've discovered in that very area clearly suggest that there was an advanced civilization that was in that area.
Oh, way beyond. The Inca even talk about it. The Inca have legends. Well, you know about like Nazca, the plains of Nazca, and everything that's up there. And in those days, giants walked the earth with the huge stones and the whole bit.
Right.
And they talk about that group, but they also have legends that go before that. That there was a highly advanced civilization before
Yeah,
that.
it's been discovered in the lower
And
mountains.
for your group, which I would think you would find most interesting, that in Brazil, they take, it's sort of strange for an archaeologist or a paleontologist going in there, in that the people in Brazil, again, coming from a very scientific, you know, boom, boom, boom mind to, is a big jump, all right? The people in Brazil firmly believe and have seen at all times flying gods from the sky from time immemorial. They're seeing them now. They believe in them, they see them all the time, they take it as old hat. Oh yeah, they come flying over that mountain, they go down here, and in fact there's caves over here that has pictures of them and drawings of them. And, oh really? Could you show me these caves? Well yeah, it'll take you a couple of weeks and you gotta climb in there, it's gonna cost so much or whatever else. And people have gone in, the archaeologists have gone in, and by God, they're there. They have no hesitation whatsoever about gods from the sky. And I'm talking today. Today. They see them all the time. Their legends and the archaeology that goes with that, again, the gods came from the sky. You've seen the monkeys they found in the caves, and they were chewing on the chicle, you know, to keep them going and whatever else, and they're the gifts for the gods. their legends come down even tighter on the things that you are aware of and go with than even the Mesoamerican. It's an amazing thing. But here we come into the Lacandones, right? And interesting people, the Lacandones, the ones I told you they didn't find until about 1950. So here I am with them. I'm there with them about 25 years after they first found them. And they're trying to get them to wear normal clothing and whatever else, but each of the groups down there have a very special textile and the thing that they do. Well, unbeknownst to me, I go doofling down because with art, you can also draw. If you can't speak the language, you can also draw stuff and get ideas across. And a smile goes a long way. Everybody laughs in the same language, everybody cries in the same language. I go doodling down to the little river. Because again, you're going to find all these civilizations have a very close water source. You have to. You can't live without water. You've got to have a potable water source. So I go down to the little stream that's down there, and the ladies are down there doing laundry or whatever else they're doing, but this one had sort of like, it was a younger girl, like, almost like a form of acne type stuff on the face. And I'm looking at her, I'm sitting down there sort of doofing the lady, some drawing and the thing, and I looked at her, and I thought, you know what, and I shot back to the plane. And I'm rummaging in the plane because I took with me, if you were in Mexico back then, you know that their soap was damn near like lye. I mean, even in the hotels, it was like, eat your skin right off. And I had all these different kinds of little soaps, you know, lavender soaps, and little zests, and little this and little that, and I also had some meds with me. I always travel with meds, especially if you're in the deep jungles, you travel with them. And I came back and had a little accoutrement of goodies, and it ended up, the ladies and I had a great time down by the river. There was shampooing going on, there was soap that smelled like lavender going on. You know, we let them do their own thing, we had a gas. Well, it turned out it was basically the head honcho's wife and daughter, and I had no idea. And we had a wonderful time. And I showed her how to put this stuff on and able to rub it down and took the red right away from this other stuff, and I gave it to her. Because I figured I can get more. And gave them all this other stuff, and they were like flabbergasted. They had a few words of Spanish, gracias, about, you know, a couple other things, but that was about it. So just before we left, I got pulled aside. And by the head honcho himself, whose picture I got, and the whole group of them came out and presented me with something. And at the time, I didn't realize what a gift it was. And it's this. Now, what you're seeing, if you're from Florida, you're going to recognize these beads, but you're going to think of these in a much smaller form. The poison bead, they come like in a little, it's the vine. You open up the vine, the little red bead is in there with a little black tip. Mm-hmm. And you're told to a kid, never put them in your mouth and bite them because it's almost like a form of nightshade.
The arrow's poison.
Exactly. Well, this is their form of them, and they're this big.
The Peru used to poison the arrows with.
Oh, yeah, it's almost like a form of curare, you can do all kinds of stuff. But that wasn't the neat thing. I mean, I find that highly neat, and I keep looking about cuts in my hand, you know, this is sort of ancient. But they presented this to him. And this is the God that took them for safekeeping. And he's out of the form of what we would think of as almost rosewood. The tree down there is similar, a rosewood would be our closest one. And you have to really look at him close. You also have to sort of feel him. You can learn more by feeling him than by looking at him. You won't find any arms on him per se, but when you look at him from the back, you know. There are no feet, no shoes on him, but look at his face. And you will find eyes on him. They're on the sides, though. Look at the crest that's on his head, and look at the split of the mouth. But this is the God that brought me. I was fascinated with this, and I said, oh, no, and I said, for God's sake, you know, you gotta take it, I'll be highly insulted, whatever else. We stayed much longer with them than I had planned. I would love to go back to them to see what's going on there with them now. But this little guy came out with me and around my neck, and we flew out. So when we got back up to San Cristobal, and San Cristobal de las Casas is one of the neatest cities. It's up high in the Sierra Madres in Mexico. It's like, even then, dropping back 200 or 250 years in time. The native Indians from all the different tribes are walking all around the streets of cobblestone. They're all walking around their native attire, their hats. It's a fantastic place. Well, Trudy Bloom, she and her husband, the archaeologist that had found the Lacandones, had what is considered, she has since passed away, her husband died long before her, a museum and a hostel, a youth hostel. You could go and stay there. The danger is she burned charcoal to heat the place. It got really cold. And what she burned could kill you. I mean, the gases could wipe you out. But we went to see, I found out about it, and I wanted to go see what she had. Well, she had a guide. And I was wearing this at the time. She had one of these little guys. The Lacandone make a very unique form of ceramics. I don't know if anybody's into ceramics or not. But it's like, the only other one that's ever gotten out into civilization is about this big. It's the same guide done in their form of ceramics. It's almost like a white powdery ash. It's like they bury it. It's almost like the Oriental form of, doing stuff. But there it was, and I come walking into her museum wearing this around my neck, and she damn near had a heart attack. And she was trying to be very casual, because her eyes went boom. And she came up and she said, where'd you get that? And I said, it was given to me. And she said, hi, who? And I said, but I like him. And she said, when were you there? And I said, yesterday. And she said, would you sell it? I said, no. And she said, would you donate it to the museum? And I said, I don't think so. And then when she was showing me her stuff, and we got into a big discussion of things. So that is precious to me. There's only two on the outside world. One is the ceramic that's in St. Cristobal, which you go and see, and this one that I know of. That's it. But the amazing part is the guy. The guy that picked them up from wherever they were, brought them, put them down, said he would come back, but no has yet. Who the gods were, I can't tell you. Where they got them from, I can't tell you, except I can look at the genotype and say, geez, they look like they bought them. I don't know. I don't have the answers for you.
How long ago was it, those supposedly that the gods picked them up and took them over there? Like what time did it?
In time so long before that they couldn't remember.
Okay.
As best we can figure, probably somewhere in the Classic Age. And the reason I started off way back in time with the Egyptian thing, BC and coming up to AD, it seems like when you get into the archaeological areas of this, that these flying gods appear in a timeline, not all the same place at the same time. They're popping up. In Mesoamerica, they seem to be more of them at the same time period doing neat things in different areas. But when you go around the world, it's like, well, we'll start here, and then we move to here, and then we go to here, and then we go to here. And who or what, I can't tell you. I can't say, yes, they're Martians and Venusians or whatever. I have no idea. All I can tell you is what I can bring you in hard evidence from the scientific community and what they are. But it gets crazier. It gets even more fun. I know a couple people knew that these were molas. Okay? These are made by the Kuna Indians in the San Blas Islands. We're talking in the Caribbean, off of Mesoamerica. All right. They are very poor people. Their form of art is a form of sewing. And it was cloth. They made their own cloth. They still do it to this day. What I've brought, and also understand that their designs are not altered. They stay. They don't get creative and do, hummingbirds with things stuck in their noses and, a rock star with a mohawk hairstyle, or no. They are very particular. The original styles have come down through the generations, thousands of years, whatever it is, no variants. They have to be. It's part of their pride. They do not take. And it's a very, very slow, picky cutout. It's not only sewn and embroidered over the top, but it's cut out. And when you look at this, the ladies must have gone blind doing these tiny stitches. I couldn't begin to do something like this. But the reason I brought these is because of the flying gods. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever seen a mola, or if you've seen the flying god that come from this culture, but there's two of them. And there's something very strange. I can't tell you what they are. I cannot. but I can tell you the legends that go with them and the history. The wild part is you always see them in the flying position, like Superman. Remember the old Superman movies? And you see him flying with the arm out, and he's smiling at you, and when he's leveled this way, we always see him from the side. And he's flat out, he's flying. Not only is he flying, but he's winged. They always put a wing on him. Bird wing, butterfly wing, whatever it is, but it's a symbol, he flies. And he's flying this way. Okay, they're always done with 3 or 4 fingers. They never have 5, they don't have 6, they have 3 or 4. Interesting. They always wear the same outfit, same girdle. When you look at it, it'll be a little interesting to you also. Go back in time. They mostly ran around barefoot. Okay? And if they wore anything on their feet, they were usually a sandal. And you've seen the classic sandals or the whatever. These little guys always wear boots. Boots. Shoes. Honest to God, booty shoes. The neat part about them, though, is they always have the straight line, the power line in the shoe. One line of power in each shoe. So what that is, I don't know. The most interesting feature on the Flying Guy isn't the face, isn't the eye. They always have a huge eye. The eye is sort of the main thing. It's what's sitting on his head. Now this will probably be more interesting to your group than to some others. He has this shape on his head. It is not a beret, it is not a hat, and it is not his hair. The shape is always the same. There is never a variance. Some people call it a cloud. One person said, boy, it's a bad haircut. I said, could be, but it's not. It's this strange shape. You can see it better in the little one than you can in the big one, okay? The little one has a better shape to it and truer than the big one. I've had people from groups like yours say, holy, but Toots, it looks like a saucer from the side. If you look at it. Other people say it's a cloud. But you've got to take it a step farther because you have to look at what's inside this strange shape. There's no variance to the shape. Somebody says, my God, his brain exploded and blew up the top of his head. No. Here's the star pattern. If you look at this one, remember the stars I talked about, the signs of heaven? There it is on this one. It's either the signs of heaven or power. And this power that they speak about is like the power of, we would think of it as lightning or electricity, like bolts. You know, like Thor threw the lightning bolts, they had a history of something like that. So the little flying guy from the Kuna Indians and the San Blas have the signs of heaven or the lightning bolts and whatever the poop this is sitting on his head. And if you ask them, what is that shape? And what is that? They don't know. They just know that it has to be kept the same. So now you've got another group of Indians today doing the same thing, non-varying. They don't know what it is or why, but they know it's the Flying Guy. Who it is? Can't tell you. Is it Quetzal? No. Is it Kukulkan? Quetzal and Kukulkan are the same guy. Quetzalcoatl, when you think of up into Mexico City, Teotihuacan, his name is Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. When you get down into the Yucatan, it becomes Kukulkan, same thing. Same guy, different name. So now we got strange stuff going on. Are there any questions up to this point before I get into the period ones? Yeah.
A few years ago, I was listening to Zacharias.
Sitchin.
Okay, he was saying that a lot of the artifacts that he had explored down in Mexico, when he went back, they were no longer on display.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on in Mexico. Are they really trying to conceal their history?
I don't know what in the devil they're doing. They are very tight with their things. Some things come out of the country. I can't blame them for not wanting their stuff to go out of the country, and all these people come in and rob the caves, and rob the grave sites, and haul them off and sell them to all these people, and they've lost their history.
Stuff out of the museum.
Yeah, they tend to be unavailable sometimes. Found that with the guys at Cholula. You know, here was this whole thing, and you can't get to it. It's sealed off. Now, whether they're still under there, under where they locked it down, or whether they've taken them to Mexico City, I don't know. but we have found our top of that. And different countries do different things like that. And you would think that everybody would want to know, but the more you learn, like when they took them to the forensic pathologist, the scarier it got, because how do you explain somebody being shot with some kind of projectile through the head in 200 AD when nobody had guns back then? And it raised more questions, and they didn't know how to answer them, so they just shuffled them back, sealed them back up, and had them on display until all of a sudden you can't get to them. It does happen. Also, in some countries, depending who's ruling, and I'm not supposed to say this, and I never did, if you've got a fairly poor country and you've got some guy that's claimed power and he's grabbed things from other people, whatever, he has think of it as a junior mafia, and he wants some money, and there's a big-time collector says, I'll pay $4 million for that one piece that's in this museum. It has a way of disappearing. There are a lot of people now in Mesoamerica, South America, that are trying very hard to protect what's there and keep it there. You know, they'll send it out like, Tuck comes to the United States, you go to see his stuff. But money makes square wheels turn, and strange stuff is happening. Unfortunately, there are good people and bad people in all professions. And then you get the wackos too, that give the other ones bad names, and the really rotten apples, they give the good ones bad names. So anything's possible, unfortunately. Yeah.
The astronauts remains in Colombia. Are they available to public view? Is this tomb available to public view?
Oh, the tomb is, yeah, it's an amazing thing. Palenque is a great place to go. It's not that far from Campeche. It's a beautiful setup. A lot of Palenque is still under earth. As you walk up, you can see the pyramid of the inscriptions and the whole other stuff. You're gonna see what it looks like. It's in the Pook area. Pook means foothills, okay? Like when you're driving up to North Carolina, and you have sort of the little rolling hills, then you get to the bigger, like, not like out in the west with the giant Rockies or anything, the little rolling hills and stuff. It's in the Pook area, the like rolling area. But when you stand in Palenque and look around, what's behind you, what you think are medium-sized little mountains, aren't mountains. They're excavations, and they're pyramids and whatever. The thing you have to understand about Mexico, too, which just blew my mind to pieces, especially in the Yucatan, one of Mexico's cash crops is beef, cattle. Toughest beef you ever want to put your mouth on. I mean, you could turn it into pocketbooks. But it brings the people in. But Mexico had a really strange thing back then in that if you were to find an archaeological site on your property, let's say you were a cattle rancher, and you had 100 acres to run your cattle on, and part of it was jungle or whatever, and in there you find this unbelievable pyramid. Holy Rouge Charlie. Do you think you're going to go tell the Mexican government? Because what happens is the Mexican government has the right to come in and take your land, not pay you for it, and not restore any more land to you. So you know what the people do? They go in at night with their family and friends and dismantle it and take it to somebody else's place and throw it away or throw it in the rivers. Because they've got to support their families. And so a lot of really neat sites have gone the way of destruction for people to keep their own property and land, which is hellacious. I mean, it's like, you've got to be kidding me.
But the remains.
The remains, he is there. You can go down, and you can go to Palenque, and it's a beautiful place to see because, in fact, there's this period in the inscriptions. I've got pictures of Palenque in here. The observatory's there. You can climb up to the top of it. It's a gas. If you go there, go to the top tower, and then look around and see the whole area. You get a totally different perspective. The unusual thing about Palenque, too, is that this guy, this astronaut, taught them to use a very unique form of plaster. He had them gather honey. There was a lot of bees and whatever. And he showed them a method to use honey and the local mud and water to make a plaster that lasted like an atomic bomb could be blown away. And it stays a sparkling white. So when you go there, if you catch the sun just right, it's almost blinding. But yeah, you climb up the front, and actually, if you're smart, you wear like Nikes or Sneakies or something. Actually, you can get up to the pyramid from the backside, but you don't get the same feeling. They're little narrow steps. I mean, you know, I don't have a size 2 foot, so I'm creeping up on the balls of my feet going up this thing. And you go on up and you can rest partway up, and once you get up to the top, you sort of sit down and then you go on down, but it's not hot inside the pyramid. You would think it would be very moist and stinky and hot. It's not. It's cool in this particular one. And as you go down, look at the corbel arch. Look at how this thing is formed, and look at the different stones. There's more to see than just what's down below. The sarcophagus is huge. It's from here to the end of that table. And it's width maybe about from there to here. The top cover stone is about that thick, amazingly incised. And when you start looking at it, if you can translate hieroglyphics at all, it'll sort of blow you away. But what's more fun, it sits, when you go in, as you're coming into the room, you come into the room this way, and the room sits that way. You come down to the landing, and here sits the sarcophagus. There's like 3 walls behind it. What you really want to look at are the paintings and the depictions of the walls behind them. And who the heck are these people holding ankhs in their hand? And there's no way to get around the god Thoth, or Anubis. It's like, holy shoot, who am I seeing? And in true color, mixed with the other gods. So, who or what, I can't tell you, but I can bring other things. Did you remember also, I did mention the fact that the Mesoamerican people were fairly hairless, bald. They didn't grow beards or mustaches, or they couldn't. They could not. A couple strange things started appearing. There are a couple gods. The big calendar stone. You've seen the, you know, the guy in the middle, and he's actually going with his tongue in the whole bit. The original one, when you see it, it's full color. If you can get to the original one and really see it, it's huge. I mean, this sucker's, you know, this big, all carved, and it's got all the dates and all the time periods and the whole shooter. The little guy that's in the middle is supposed to be Quetzal, the god. Guess what color his hair is? And he also has a mustache. I hate to tell you this, but he's got a mustache. He's blonde. And he's blue-eyed. Now everybody's yelling, Vikings! Vikings! It's a Viking! But there's another history that goes with him, too. And again, Quetzal is the feather serpent that flies through the sky. And there is a translation which may make sense to you, coming from where you live, as opposed to mine. But there's a translation that comes through that you would understand as a Nordic. Now, I had to have this explained to me, okay? Because I'm like, it's a Viking. No. And it was explained to me, and I went, no, who? What? Oh, yeah. So whether he is or not what you would know as a Nordic or a Nordic type is a separate and apart and totally different than a Viking. Okay? And whether this is Quetzal or whether this is whatever this is, I don't know. I can't tell you. All I can tell you is what the translations and the stories say, and they're literally written in stone. So, yeah.
Could you explain the Nordic? I'm not familiar.
Probably one of these people could explain it to you better because I'm not coming from the UFO side, but from what was told to me, it explained to me that there are various extraterrestrial types of beings. One of them being a very humanoid, I would be a Nordic. In fact, the guy said, you're a Nordic. And I was like, well, I've got a lot of ancestors that are Swedish, Danish, Finnish, you look at me, you can tell pretty much where I'm from. And he said, you're a classic Nordic. And I was like, well, of course I am. But I've got like 10 nationalities in it. He said, no. And he said to the people that are into this, that there's all kinds of extraterrestrial beings, lizards and little gray people and little green people and bad ones and good ones. But one of the types that they refer to as Nordic. And that they're very looking like I do or you do, and that they're very light-skinned, light-haired, light-eyed, whatever. And I was like, because you can guppy me pretty easy. They had me going for about 4 hours that they were doing kangaroos in South America, and I was going with them, and they got hysterical, and I got guppy again. but they were dead serious, and then they showed me some other stuff. So I'm having to expand my information and my horizons very differently from here to there, and now they're starting to come together. And the more I find no ridiculousness in it, I find that it's seeming to mesh and make sense. And the things that we've wondered about forever in science and archaeology, boy, Charlie, there's a lot of stuff out there. And then I went back to biblical archaeology, which is another thing that I do. And we refer to the sons of heaven. And you find the references to them throughout the Bible. And the sons of heaven, well, even when Mary was supposed to be carrying Christ and said, hey, you didn't do it, an angel came down. I mean, if that happened to you today, and I mean, put it in today's language. You know, hey, Ralph, we're going to have a baby, but it's not yours. And an angel came, and the guy's going to punch your brains out. You know, excuse me? You know, I can imagine back then what it was like. But the wording says, it is neither yours nor one of the sons of heaven. And there are references all through archaeology and all through written history of these sons of heaven, who some people call Nephilim, some people call, you know, various forms of angel, whatever, but they always come up here, and that they are able to interbreed with human females, and that their offspring become another form of more advanced being. And we've got recordings of them. I mean, we've got written histories of them. We have drawings of them. No one's ever found one, you know, body-wise, to dig it up and say, aha! Now, I will throw a little funsy out to you, because Michael knows about this. I'm going to drop back in time to ancient Egypt, boom, where we started in the beginning. According to legend and according to history, are you familiar with the Book of the Dead? You know what it is? All right, for those of you that don't, the Book of the Dead from ancient Egypt is set up for two purposes. One, they believe that upon your death, you had to pass through various tests. I'm taking it as simple as I can. You hit the underworld, and you had to have these various tests, and along the way you met various gods, different beings, entities, and you had to have the right answers or back to go when you were gone. You know, you were not in existence. But the Book of the Dead started out a little bit more than that. It was instructions passed on by the gods, the flying gods, okay, on how to preserve a human body. But more than that, that's where the form of mummification came. The true form, as they refer to it, of mummification. Here's where it gets hairy. This gets really hairy. Supposedly, as the legends state, and as the books, because the Egyptians had a lot of written material too. And it was in hieratic, not just in hieroglyphic, but the actual written form, that the priest kept, and usually with Ra, Amun-Ra, the sun god, the flying god. And it said, you will do this to preserve the body. Because originally, supposedly what happened is the god came down and said, okay, this god also interbred. There's two different stories. One goes to a thing which you would know as Atlantean and Mu. The other one goes the other way. And you're going to go to Osiris and the whole schmear, supposedly coming from a culture far more advanced. But the god came down and said, okay, all right, I'm going to interbreed, but my bloodline has got to be kept pure. And therefore, if you're the pharaoh, that's why brothers married sisters and whatever else. And I'm sure they had some really wacko kids back then too. But you kept this line pure and it passed. So goes the history. But they took it a step farther. And the god said, listen, I've got other things to do in my godlike world. I'm going to blast off, and I'm going to not be back when your lifetime is over with. But if you do what I say, I will resurrect you. And when I come back, there may be 4 pharaohs. When I come back, I'm going to bring you all back to life. And we're going to sit down and have a nice little chat over tea or whatever they, you know. And we're going to have a little chat, and I'm going to find out what happened in your lifetime, and your lifetime, and your lifetime, and your lifetime. Basically, it's like, catch me up to date. And you'll continue to live. And that there is no death, and I can do this to you. Well, they believed it. I mean, I'd like to believe it. You know, somebody flew down out of something and said, hey, But to do it, you've got to follow these steps, and they cannot be varied in any way, shape, or form. Okay. And only for Pharaoh and Pharaoh's family. John Q. Public, I don't care if you were chief scribe, priest of Amun-Ra, just Pharaoh's blood could have this done, fine and dandy. So they set up all these guys, and they were taught, and they had to follow it by the letter. Now, it changed through the centuries. They bastardized the form of this. But in the beginning, way back, and through even into the 18th dynasty, they followed the form of mummification. Well, they found out something really unusual, and it's just happened in the past 5, 6 years. You know how they find the caches of mummies, the royal mummies? And they decided, holy shoot, we're going to pull DNA and see who's who. Is this, Ramses is the first, and this is studied of this one, and let's see how the bloodline, we're going to match the DNA. Well, they found a really weird thing, they didn't know what the hell to do with it. They found it, truly, and I'm just putting it in modern language, they found out that the cells, the skin cells, are not dead. They're in a deep form of hibernation. If they were mummified as the gods said to do, the cells are not dead. They're there. They're viable. We're not sure how to bring them out yet, but you can pull DNA from them. Viable DNA. So if you could clone a sheep or an ox or whatever, it's possible they could, pull this stuff out and clone a person. Who knows? But that raises more questions. What in the heck was going on back then? If we can clone sheep, could somebody from somewhere else have this technology come back and clone them? Did they have a way of bringing them back to life? What the heck, we don't know. All we know is these are viable cells. They are not dead. As you go later and they bastardize the form, the cells are they're just,
Somewhere I got a little confused switching back and forth between Mesoamerica and Egypt and the Book of the Dead. You're talking about the Egyptian process of mummification.
the original.
And pre-18th dynasty or 18th dynasty?
18th dynasty still kept it. It goes way back. But after the Ramses, you've seen the mummy of Ramses with his nose all smashed and he's laying there looking really strange, the one that was supposed to be the great pharaoh and during Moses and the whole bit. They started changing it slightly. But it goes way back. And it goes back to the recorded history of before the pyramids were starting to come up, basically. Also, there is a legend, and it ties to the Book of the Dead, and I'm going to be highly interested to see what happens with this. I have a friend that does, think of an MRI of the Earth. His company is out in Texas, and they were supposed to fly into the Valley of the Kings. They do like a sonogram, and they go in and they find like L5 and K2, all this other stuff. And they were getting ready to go in, and then because of the mess that's going on now, they ain't going. But some interesting stuff has come out. Some very interesting stuff. And one of the things that I was most fascinated with, and I hope that Richard was going to go and do, is there is a legend and a written history stating that, and you may be familiar with this, that the Sphinx is not what you think it is. And that there is a repository somewhere buried beneath the Great Sphinx. The Sphinx comes from before the time of the pharaohs, supposedly. The body of the Sphinx goes back, way back. And things were added to him, but below, somewhere below the Sphinx, whether it's under his paws, under his body, wherever the fuck this is, supposedly there is a repository left by the gods that has all kinds of information in it that can bring man back to whatever the gods were able to do. Interesting. There's people out there hunting for the ark, there's people out there hunting for this, but again, you have to deal with what's going on in today's day and age. You got people shooting each other, blowing each other up, doing all, are you gonna go out there and have your head blown off when you can wait maybe a few years and things will settle down? It's a really hairy deal. Archaeologists put their life on the line all the time. They're in areas that you don't have a consulate, you don't have an embassy. You've got to deal with the local people, and if you're out in the boonies and you've only got a canoe and it's got to take you 2 weeks to paddle into somewhere, and you get hit by some god-awful snake or whatever else, if you can't deal with it, you're dead. Let alone you're dealing with drug cartels in South America. And if they think that you've got a wealthy family, I've got a neighbor too down the street, he's the hostage negotiator, he's down there all the time, having to negotiate for these, kids from wealthy families. When the drug cartels take them off, they have to negotiate back and forth and whatever else, and it's a zoo. So it's,
The Patriots predicted that they would find it. They didn't say when, but they said that that's what the records were there.
oh, for the Sphinx?
Yep, sure did.
Yes.
Well, I know that I got tied into some of Edward Casey's stuff when we were doing underwater archaeology, and off of the Bahamas, there's some strange stuff. The neatest thing, there's an island, it's basically an uninhabited island, that's part of the chain, that had been referred to through other writings, that some people refer to as an Atlantean pool, so this may make sense to you, and it's called a healing pool. And it looks like it's surrounded by mangroves, and it's just this like little pool. I mean, it's about as big as this room, really. And if you go in and swim in it and whatever else, if you've got acne, zits, horrible whatever, but if you swim around it for a couple hours, by that evening or the next day, they're healed. And they went in and they've been doing tests on the water, and they know that it's high in magnesium and in zinc as well, but it's from like an artesian source from way down underneath. There's a lot of interesting stuff, but there was a guy there that was doing some stuff with Casey's stuff and trying to find out, and he thought this is one of the places he talked about.
I rode off of them because they found it in the water.
Oh,
That was all cut, all the stones were perfectly cut, it kept possibly there by accident.
the one thing I can bring to you, Michael knows about this, and it sort of blows a lot of people's theories. Should I bring it up about the Flight 19?
If you wish.
Okay, the Devil's Triangle. My dad, during World War II, the reason I wear this, my dad's one of the world's leading authorities on Spanish-American gold. When they found the treasure fleet here, the plate fleet off of Florida, they brought the stuff to him to verify and to see what, and through that, as that came out, there were other things that were being found off the coast of Florida. Well, during World War II, my dad was OSS, which is like CIA now. And because he had a massive ability with languages, he speaks 11 languages, 9 fluently and 2 on the outside, my mother spoke 3. And they snatched him. Plus he was degreed to the areas that they needed as well. But all his other relatives, his brother was Navy, he was at Pearl Harbor when it was bombed, and everybody else were flyers. My Uncle John, my Uncle whatever, they were all flyers. Well, his first cousin, they called Odd, because his actual name was Adolf, and this was not a good name to have. And this was really a very rotten name to have during World War II, bad. And so they called him Odd, and he was the baby of his family. He was the youngest one, again, a flyer. And he was in the Flight 19, okay? His brother Stan, my Uncle Stan and my Uncle John, also flyers, had fits. They were always determined that they were going to find Odd's plane and bring him home. And because of their contacts and my dad's contacts not only with who he'd been doing during the war, but because of the treasure salvers and the gold fleet and whatever, they put together some information. And they went out, and with the Navy and whatever else, they found, if you hear that none of those planes have ever been found, it's bullpucky. 3 of them have been, and my uncle's plane was found. The one thing I will say about the planes is that the instrumentation had never been tested. They sent these young boys up in planes with screwed up instrumentation, big time. The 3 are off the coast of Florida. The 1 isn't. They brought up Odd's plane. Not off that far from Vero Beach, actually. And got his up. What was left is the big motor. The wooden parts were gone. But they had like serial numbers and things all on them. And they were all matched, and it was his plane. He was never found. Nor dog tags, nor skeletons, or whatever. But they were able, they got permission, they raised up the motor, and it's in upstate New York as a memorial to him. A handsome guy. Oh, that damn good-looking people. And in this picture is actually, they can actually put pictures like into stone and seal them and whatever, and it's a dedication, it's a war memorial to that group. And there are two others. One of the planes is still intact, and actually, if you had scuba equipment, you go down, it's declared a war memorial, it's not brought up. But the body's not in that either. But where the other ones are, they assume that they went out farther. They paused it. All they know is that they sent out a bunch of young, inexperienced guys. And the leader of the group didn't know a whole bunch of what he was doing either. They thought they were going one way, went another, their instruments didn't work. And they do know from two of the planes that the planes went just straight. Remember like John Kennedy's plane? Straight down? They didn't have like transponders and stuff down, but evidently two of the planes just went boom. They didn't go sink, they just went boom. So as far as three of the planes, I can tell you they've been found. Where the others are, I have no idea, and why, I have no idea. But that's a family member, so if that's a help or a hindrance to anybody. But when you see the programs on TV, they've never been found. Yeah. Are there any other questions on this other stuff, because I can get into other who does here? On the gods or the legends that go with them, or?
Well, you mentioned about the fingernails, and then
Yeah.
kind of, was there anything else they said?
Oh, yeah.
Or talked to you, or
Oh.
that you saw that was?
Oh, yeah, their body types are very, very different.
Yeah.
Their fingers, their hand shape, if you get into, is a much squatter. I have very long fingers and a fairly good sized hand because I'm a tall person. Their palm is squatter and their palm is very square. And they have very shortened fingers. Unlike the gods who are supposed to have very long fingers, according to all legends, long, skinny fingers and long, slender bodies. They're a very short, squat people. They're a handsome people. They look like, they do not look like a Mayan. They think of a classic Hispanic Mexican type. Do they look like the carvings off the pyramids? No. They don't look like anything else that's in Mexico or Central America. South America, yeah. Their nose is very different. They have that very aquiline nose. They don't have the little schmoop or the big beak. They don't have the smashed back heads.
Sounds like it sounds like they're a god that's sitting down there with a genetic scientist.
Could have been, but he did an awful lot of inbreeding. That's not a good thing to do. And supposedly they didn't bring in any other outsiders either. It was that group.
It would be interesting to look at their DNA to find out if there's what major differences exist.
If you could get their permission and the Mexican government would allow it, I would think it'd be fantastic. I would like to see DNA from all the different areas. There are tribes up there still that live like they did, back at that time. Not quite Stone Age, but back at that time. I mean, they don't want to have anything to do with modern man who came in and wiped them all out. In Cholula, I mean, you talk about weird stuff. When the Spanish came in, here was this fantastic ceremonial center where the gods were. And I mean, it was still going pretty strong up to 1100 or whatever. The Spanish come in. And they had found out about this place. And of course, what are you going to do? If you got to defeat somebody, you go to major centers and wipe them out. Cut the head off the snake and you got it. They killed, I think it was 16,000 warriors in one day. Came in and nailed them down. But understand this also, it wasn't until after the classic period, when the Toltec came in, the Mesoamericans were very gentle people. They did not believe in cutting out hearts and whacking people down. That didn't come in until later. When these gods were gone, in come what we would think of as the Toltec, the big, nasty Nazi warrior types, and started all of this up. The hearts were cut out, the blood was done, the ball games, the whole schmear. So it's a jump from very classic, bringing people up, doing all the wonderful things to, holy geez, this group, and then goes. So this is where it gets to be fun. Have I brought Lloyd Pye up yet? Lloyd Pye, the god of fire. This is from Veracruz. Lloyd Pye goes back classically. He hits the classic period and goes a little bit beyond. If you look at this guy, does this look like Mayan? No. In a way, but more than that. More than that. If you really look at him, he's got something that Mayans don't have. He's got a beard. He not only has a beard, he's got a perfectly crafted goatee. I mean, this one. Boom. But you've got to really look at the nose structure, what's going on up in here, and this formation. As the light hits it, he does weird stuff. As you walk by him, he almost is following you. But he's the god of fire. He holds a strange place in this period of time. And now I'm going to have to go to like a biblical source. We always think of good and evil, cloven hoofed. If you had to consider him a devil or an angel, who would he be?
Looks a little devilish.
Yeah, he does look devilish. And what is he, the god of what? There's some strange stuff that go with him. Some really strange stuff. But he's also tied to a flying power as well. But he is considered one of the bad guys. So how that links up with what you fellas have, I have no idea. But there he is. And there's quite a few of them. The bad guys, there's the ones who wear the white hats and there's the ones who wear the black hats. And they're very, very different. Very different. In form and in function and in what they do. So who they are, what they are, who knows? In Palenque, in Yachilan, when we flew in, remember I was telling us flying into the little bush plane and we're going to have to land in this thing? I'm like, holy jeez Louise. These are pictures, updated pictures that come from Yachilan. And it's the Lord of the Green Stones. He's got another name, Jaguar. The Jaguar Prince, the Lord of the Green Stones. It's a lady and a man. And if you look at it and read about it, you're going to find some unusual stuff. But when we flew into Yachilan, it was just being excavated at the time. The pyramid at Yachilan is as tall as the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico City. But it's done very differently. Instead of being this shaped at the top, there's a lattice work. It's the most beautiful thing you ever want to see. When we got there, we flew in, and there were workers sitting on top of this lattice work trying to put it together. It has remember I told you the pillars where you walk in and there's a doorway? The guys were up there, and I had to turn sideways because the main archaeologists had flown out, and I wanted to see what they were doing down below. And the legend was that all the pyramids interconnected, and that the gods had instructed them how to do this. And I thought, this is supposed to be the head pyramid. Well, I'm coming in on what I think is ground level, but it's the very tip top of the pyramid. You've got to go way down there to get to the base of it. Well, there's a doorway open, and they cleaned some of the rubble out, and the only way, because I couldn't get the lights on, was to go sideways so the lights could come down with me, this way. And I'm creeping down this rubbly stuff. And all of a sudden I hear this. I thought, uh-oh. So I yell out in Spanish, "Ay, ratones aquí, do you have rats here?" And what came back down is, "No, ma'am, but we get a lot of bats." And I'm out of there faster than you can blink an eyeball. But in Yachilan, they have a perfect observatory too. And all of the stuff that comes out of Yachilan and the people that are there carry the same God, the same flying gods, the same gods that teach them all this stuff. So wherever you have a legend of a flying god that comes in, the good God, you always have the same thing. Civilization advances, all the good things, all the cultures come in. It's calm, it's peaceful, the people have plenty of food. It's when the bad gods come in and link up with the bad guys on earth is when everything goes to hell, literally and handbasket. It's some really, really amazing things. But they have always promised that they will always come back in certain cycles and check and see what's going on. So what they are, who they are, I can't tell you. I can give you the legends, I can give you the history. But it's rather an intriguing deal. And there's this is a fun little treasure. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, you always see him as, looks like the dragon with the teeth hanging out, the stuff, he looks like a raptor. There's a stele of him, a carving of him in human form. And when you look at him, there's something really sort of strange about him. And this is AD 600 to 900. He doesn't look like anything else that's found there. And that's a neat little thing to look at. The feathered serpent in human form. Strange and unusual. But there's, so the more that you learn, the more questions that are out there. But if you would like to really have some fun, especially with Star Child, go onto the internet to the starchildproject.com, all one word, starchildproject.com, and pick it up and start going. And if you would like to get that tape or that movie or get in on the Star Child project, because they will keep you up to date, it's being kept pure, to find out what it is, who it is, and it could rattle a lot of people's teeth down the road. I would encourage you to do that. And if you've got a group or somebody that wants to donate $100 towards, funding for some of this stuff, you will get a 2.5-hour movie of all the origins of everything that I've been talking about more, plus 90 minutes, it's 2.5 hours, 90 minutes on the Star Child itself, with Lloyd doing it, and it was filmed and done in England. It was all done while he was over in Europe during the tour. So that's well worth it, and I can give you the address for that too.
What year did you say they actually found that best doll?
The one in Chihuahua,
The Star Child.
the Star Child, that's Chihuahua. It would go back to turn of the century, 20s.
Okay. I was thinking.
And, no, it came out in fairly recent time, and it transferred from the hands of those who found it to the family, and then the family transferred it again, and then it transferred again. There is if you go to the Star Child site,
Yeah.
you can read everything you'd ever want to know about it. And if you're of a scientific mind, it will give you all of the breakdown scientifically of the DNA, of the bone structure, of the mandibles, of the teeth, of the whatever you want. It's an amazing thing. So my eyeballs got popped open big time. I'm coming from one side and man, I'm, going to another.
Just, you mentioned about the Sphinx and something down there. You should know too that below that in the Great Pyramid is supposedly a few hundred feet down is a UFO down there, and that's where extraterrestrials, the Gizas, came from. The Gizas are in that area. That's what's been said by.
It would be interesting. I mean, I would dearly love, to see something like that myself. I would think it'd be fantastic. All I know is what the writings, I can only come from, my side, and what the legends and the writings say. And it would make sense beneath that pyramid. But they say specifically beneath the Sphinx, and the Sphinx is far older than man has any idea. In fact, it's supposed to, if you go to biblical reference to the time the Sphinx weathered the flood.
The accepted date now is roughly 10,500 years ago.
Or way longer, even. They even say,
1,005 plus.
yeah.
No, I think it's
So,
about 10,000.
And in fact, the spooky thing, they've been doing studies on the body of the Sphinx. Where if you look at it, it sort of comes down this way, and it's not a sand weathering, it's a water weathering.
Right, that's why they've dated it to some 10,500
And so that tends to blow classical archaeologists right out of the water too. Well, it's the Sphinx and Bonaparte. What is this? And they're finding stuff all over the place. The pyramid cultures all around the world, the ones in China are amazing. And there's pyramids in the South Pacific that will blow you away. And there's classic Greek pyramids under the water in South Pacific Island. Now,
There's
they
been
come-
projects to get in them.
Pardon?
There's been projects to get in them. I ran into something that said that the Navy Department was involved in one of them that was opening up and closing. And it seemed to be doing that about every 10 or 12 years based on what I was noticing in the pattern. And so there's a lot more to the pyramids that are under the ocean that has been revealed up till now. But Casey talked about it. Then they were found.
It just fascinates the bedealings of it. I mean, when you come from training from one aspect, and then you bang into this over here, and then you start putting it together, it's like, all I can say is, I don't know. I know what I would like it to be.
According to Sitchin, those are the civilizations that existed before the last ice age, roughly 17,500 years ago, when the oceans were easily 300 to 500 feet shallower than they are now.
Well, we've got the Native American. Yeah.
I'd just like to add a little bit when you're finished, Steve.
Oh, you were gonna,
I've got some bigger context to offer for what
Oh,
you're
okay.
sharing.
but there was, whoa, our time is,
Yeah, we're getting there.
okay. So there's other things that I could get into and show you, but again, on this one, this rendering, what the star child should be, they've taken what they have of the skulls where the eye orbits are, and this one, it's Mark Beam from the Virtual Theater. They did a forensic rendering of what they thought the star child should look like. There's variances here, but the ears, the placement is there. The only thing that they did wrong on this is that they've got the neck looking head held this way, and it's actually held this way because of the connection. But if you go to the Star Child site and start reading, it will amaze you. It is well worth your time. Well worth your time, no matter what direction you're coming from, whether you're coming from archaeology or whether you're coming from your area. If you're not familiar with it, get into it. It's amazing. Yeah.
There's been some excavations down in South Africa, Great Zimbabwe. I think they had some pyramids down there too.
I don't know about that far down. The Ethiopians had mastabas and step pyramids. And I know that, they always talk about Odumbaya Gorge, as being the cradle of civilization, when Lucy and all the other, hominids and things came out. But if you really want to blow your brains away and just rattle your core, in an area of Mexico called Monte Alban, and in the high areas in what you would think of as an Inca area, there are two places. In Monte Alban, and there's pictures of them, there is all these depictions of all these people, and they used to call them the dancers, okay? But what they're showing is almost every kind of medical malformation of a human being or an illness, and there's actually, when you translate the glyphs that they found now, it's how to treat them and get rid of them and do better. It's like a medical school. High up into the Andes, and this is where it gets highly interesting, there is a place that's referred to as the Gate of the Sun. It's a large walled structure, four-sided structure, arched, and in the top there's a picture of the god with a tear
Yeah,
coming out of its eye. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying to remember the name of the place.
Teotihuacan.
No, that's in Mexico.
Well, yeah. Now you got me. I'm having a senior moment. Ignore me for a minute. I'll come up with it in a minute. But when you walk through the gates and you come inside, all along, and again, it's that huge stone structure, sitting into niches all the way around, all the walls. And now you're dropping back in time, pre-classic. You're going back to, maybe 100 AD, a little bit BC, somewhere in there, because their classic period was in there. In every little niche is every hominid type found on the face of the earth. Oriental. And they break it down by more. You could have, I would say black, okay? But you might have Maasai, you might have this group, you may have that group, and they're all in order. Every type that we know on the face of the earth right now is there. Whether it's Eskimo, the Inuit, whether it's a Caucasian, whether it's you name them, those faces are all plastered into those walls going back pre-200 AD. Now, you tell me what civilization had that contact and that knowledge and that ability to carve it so perfectly that it is totally recognizable by any anthropologist that looks at it and goes, holy poop.
This is
And-
where?
It's the plateau, Bolivian plateau, as I recall.
It's not that far from Nazca, that'll help you.
No
But-
wonder.
Yeah, but there's, and also there's other areas up there too, that Machu Picchu, there are areas where they call listening areas. And they took the old history, Machu Picchu, the place they didn't even know it was up there and the whole bit, and there's some walls that are carved around the edges of like the mountains. And it would be like a little bay window carved out of stone. So instead of the wall going like this, you'd have like a thing about this size. The stone would come out like this and then smoothly and out. And then there's like a little kneeling place. And they always used to think it was that people could sit there and just enjoy the sun and the wind and whatever. But the legends say that you could hear the gods if you sat there and you were of the right mind. And if you go and sit, it's like a perfectly acoustical setup. You can talk over there and whisper. You've seen your room set up like you whisper here and you can hear it there. These little places work the same way. So, yeah, so where the gods were whispering from, heaven knows, but if you could have somebody planted over there going, this person's going, got him, I'll take him right over. But the more you know, the more questions that are raised. So it's an interesting view. I could go on forever, but any other questions at all, or?
Yeah, can you come back at some time?
Sure.